Good night, everyone. Today, I want to sort of talk about the rock melon. Now here, clearly this one I've cut into quarters. It was originally a half, which is a bit foolish of me because it would have been nice to have shown you a full rock melon. But you can sort of imagine just looking at it from this angle what it looks like. Surely you've probably seen one in the market, in the store, though. This is okay. Before I go any further, actually, I want to address something because in the rest of the world, not in Australia and New Zealand, these are known as cantaloupes, I believe, but in Australia and New Zealand we call them rockmelon, and it's a little bit complicated. But this is the typical sort of rockmelon cantaloupe you might see sold in Australia, New Zealand, or America, I think. They can come with or without the lines, but in Europe, my understanding is their cantaloupes, their rock melons do not look anything like this. If we zoom in close, we can see the webbed netting on the skin here, on the rind, and in Europe it's more smooth. It looks a bit more like it's got the lines like this one here, but it's more like the skin is sort of similar more to a honeydew, more smooth. And so the reason it's complicated is those types of rockmelon, of cantaloupe I should say, in Europe are actually cantaloupe, but these are not quote unquote technically cantaloupes. They're muskmelons, which is a sort of broad category, but all cantaloupes are muskmelons, but not all muskmelons are cantaloupes. So in Australia and in New Zealand we call these rockmelons, we don't call them cantaloupes. In America they call these cantaloupes even though they aren't, and in Europe they call what they sell their cantaloupes, but they are cantaloupes because the region that they originally came from in I think in Italy was called, I don't know, cantaloupe or something, some Italian name, and that's sort of where they get the name from originally. Now over here I have something a kind of interesting that I wanted to show, and I'm not sure if it really comes through on the camera, but in the store recently that I usually go to, we're selling this as rockmelon, and inside, if we take a comparison side by side here, they are the normal ones here, and this is the yellow skinned one here. They are quite similar. They're both quite orange. Maybe the yellow one is a bit paler, and I sort of think I've been deceived a little bit because they're both being sold as rockmelon, even though they clearly look very different, especially if they haven't been cut into halves or anything. But try as I might, I can't really find anything in my fruit and vegetable encyclopedia or online or anywhere about rockmelon with yellow skin. Now most people know the three main melons. They know the rockmelon or the cantaloupe, they know honeydew, they know watermelon, but apart from that, there's a ton of other ones. There's bitter melon, there's horned melon, there's winter melon, there's Christmas melon. There's all these melons that we can't really keep track of. But clearly, this is not the same as that. So I think what has happened here is somebody has bred, let's say, like a canary melon or a Crenshaw melon, which a Crenshaw melon especially is a sort of hybrid of a cantaloupe or a rock melon with a different kind of melon, one that has a yellow skin, but the flesh inside is still quite orange. It's maybe a bit paler, but I'm not sure if that is due to it perhaps not being as ripe, or if that's a natural quality, but I'm leaning towards it being a natural quality. But nonetheless, I have both of these. They've both been marketed to me as rockmelon. The yellow one, I've been told, is a sweeter sort of version. It didn't cost me any extra. They weren't sold any different, but I thought it might be interesting to sort of have both of these, and we can talk a bit about all the different types of melons that there are, and maybe we can suss out if there's a difference here. If you ever see a yellow skin melon, yellow skin rock melon even, like the one I've got here. Now it's interesting. I don't just bring up the naming of the rock melon or the musk melon out of hand, because a lot of people, they're perhaps I should save this for the tasting part, but I'm just going to go ahead anyway. But a lot of people, they sort of they'll avoid rock melon because they don't like the taste, and the thing they don't like about the taste is that it's it's not sweet enough. And I find that can be a common complaint with a lot of melons, with honeydew, with rock melon, with watermelon, is that when you buy a watermelon or when you buy a rock melon, so often, when you get one that's good, it's really good, but so often they're just not in that zone of perfectly tasting fruit of what you want. And that can usually be fine. Let's say if you've got an apple that's not perhaps as sweet as you like it to be, still tastes pretty good. But like a watermelon that's not quite ripe or it just lets you down can go wrong on so many levels that people, and myself included, I don't eat a lot of watermelon just because the window of which it's perfect is so narrow, and outside of that it's not even worth it. It's not very good. But rockmelon, honeydew, I enjoy quite a bit if they're good, and that is obviously the important caveat here, and that's what we're going to sort of investigate in the tasting section. But the reason I bring that up is because when we talk about people not liking rockmelon, and they don't like it because it's not sweet enough, and there's certainly a lot of breeding and experimentation going on constantly. Things are getting sweeter, things are getting more seedless. We want to make it more convenient, more appealing to the consumer. I saw earlier on in the year, I picked up a packet of grapes that had actually been bred to taste like sweets, to taste like confectionery, and they had that sort of very bizarre artificial aftertaste that you get when you eat confectionery. And I mean, really, it didn't appeal to me at all. I thought it was quite disgusting. It made me want to throw up. But that just goes to show you, they were called candy grapes, and that just goes to show you, what people want. They want a more sweet fruit. But in terms of the rock melon itself, it is a musk melon. So that musky flavor that people find so detracting, and they don't like it about the rock melon, they're sort of they're complaining about one of the intrinsic qualities of the rock melon, really, because it's in the name. It's got that musky taste. And so if you're the kind of person that likes that musk taste, you can get those musk sticks, the candy, and if you like those, perhaps rock melon appeals to you a bit more. But if you're one of those people who's got a real sweet tooth, they don't like that musky taste at all, that, not to be rude, but when you buy a rock melon, you've got to sort of expect that it has that musky taste, because it's intrinsic to the fruit itself. Now, rock melon, watermelon, a lot of these melons, honeydew. When we looked at lemons and limes, and this certainly applies to other fruits as well. Oranges even though people might eat oranges just by themselves, obviously they do, or apples or pears and stuff like that. They use it a lot in cooking as well. So of course you've got apple pie and peach cobbler and all sorts of cuisine that involves cooking with fruit. Now, with the melons, on the other hand, we don't really see a lot of that, and we might see a watermelon juice or something like that, or it gets used in smoothies, and you see all these fancy smoothies with like watermelon and mint and lychees and all this amazing stuff that people throw in so they can drink for breakfast. But and of course there's fruit salads, which are just usually watermelon, honeydew, rockmelon, pineapple. But apart from that, people don't really cook with those fruits. So this is a real sort of fruit in terms of its culinary usage. I mean, we talked about before with tomatoes and how tomatoes are. There's always someone who thinks they're a genius, and they'll say, "Hey, a berry, that's a banana. Sorry, that's actually a berry." And they'll say, "A tomato, that's actually a fruit. You shouldn't call that a vegetable." Well, most people refer to things for their culinary usage, and so their use in cooking. Most people don't just bite down on a tomato. Most people don't just bite down on an eggplant. Let's say that. So the sort of distinction there is vegetables are more for cooking and fruits are more for just eating on their own. Now there are, of course, or eating raw, and there are, of course, exceptions to that, and you can eat plenty of vegetables raw. I'm not disputing that. But when I say a rock melon, or the melons generally are a fruit, people just buy them, they cut them up, and then they eat them straight. They eat them straight away like that. You don't see a lot of cooking like you do with so many other fruits. Even though people, of course, they eat apples, they eat cherries, they eat peaches, they eat nectarines all by themselves, but those fruits still see a lot of cooking usage. Melons, not so much. They're more of a, you invite your friends around, and you can buy a whole watermelon, and it's just huge, and you can cut it open, and you can, even if you go to a smaller or a more fancier store, they'll cut the rockmelon up really fancy, where they have the jagged edges all around, and it's a whole spectacle, really. Or you can peel the whole melon. If you've ever seen that, that's really impressive. But we're gonna gonna jump ahead to the tasting here. So I'm gonna try the standard normal one first. I've sort of looked into why the lines are here, but I can't really find a whole lot of information on that. I think they're just sort of there, or they aren't. It's not really something that has a lot of effect on or it's not something that is really decided maybe from the breed of the rockmelon or the cultivar of the rockmelon. I think there are types of rockmelon or muskmelon or whatever you want to call it that have these lines a bit more, maybe. I think there's like more fragrant versions that are grown in France and that they have that, but I don't really think it matters. I've had both. I can't really tell the difference, and though I've never really tried them side by side, so perhaps that's a video for another day. Anyway, sort of going ahead to the tasting here, and then we'll talk a bit more about it. Okay, that was the standard cantaloupe, and here is the yellow skin one. I've never had this before. It could absolutely blow my socks off. Well, first things first, I mean, again, it's sort of hard to describe the taste of a fruit to somebody who's never had the fruit before. Like, I can't say, if I take an example of something that's just very ubiquitous, like an apple, I can't, and somebody's never had an apple before, I can't say to them, oh, an apple, that tastes a bit like an orange and some celery mixed together. I mean, obviously, I just picked two things at random, but there's not two things that I can really describe that sort of taste like an apple if you put them together. And it's like that with all fruits, really, and vegetables. They're such sort of base levels of taste that, you either know what they taste like because you've tasted them, and it's not something that can really be articulated to others. But that was a pretty standard Rockmelon. I don't really have any complaints. You know, some people they just can't stand Rockmelon. They can't stand the taste, and I'm not one. I'm not one of them. It tasted fine to me. It wasn't, you know, terribly sweet. It definitely had that musky undertone that it's known for. But this one, the yellow flesh one, I honestly, I mean, you go into the stores and they'll have stuff like red Brussels sprouts I had before, or they might have purple carrots or stuff like that. And a lot of the times I just see it as a sort of gimmick. And don't get me wrong, I'm the sort of person that really gets drawn in by that sort of stupid nonsense. But I didn't really expect to taste that I didn't expect it to taste that different. But no, I wasn't lied to when I asked about it, because it is definitely sweeter, and it has less of that musky undertone. Now, that's sort of a double-edged sword, because obviously there's a lot of demand out there for sweet things. People everywhere, they have sweet tooths. They really want sweet stuff. They want and stuff is just getting more and more full of flavor, I guess you could say. You know, the stuff is getting more salty. The salty stuff is getting more salty. The sweeter stuff is getting more sweeter. So people are just getting more and more exposed as we go through the generations. Younger and younger people are getting more exposed to sweeter things, to more intense flavors, intense basic levels of flavor. So, and you can see that with a lot of stuff. You know, if we look at, let's say, wild strawberries or wild anything, it's a lot. The taste is a lot different, and it's a lot smaller, and it's a lot less intense than perhaps the stuff we're used to buying in markets or in the supermarket in our day-to-day lives. And so there's clearly a reason for that. People they have a demand for sweeter stuff, for more intense stuff, for stuff that's really going to tickle their palate, really let off all the endorphins in their brain. So you can definitely see why something like this might be developed. A Rockmelon that is sweeter, that appeals more broadly to people. You can definitely see why people would want that, or why the growers would want to create something like that, because Rockmelon in the popular consciousness perhaps doesn't have as great an appeal as something as if it were sweeter. But obviously we have a lot of, I won't say niche, but a smaller subset of Rockmelon fans, and perhaps they really like what Rockmelon has been throughout the years, and they want to keep that in their lives. You know, they enjoy the musky taste that is attributed to the Rockmelon, and that's understandable. Obviously, people out there, they enjoy musky things, or some of them do, at least from time to time. So, is it good necessarily that we should be moving towards more intense flavors, and we should be shunting the flavors of the less demanded flavors to the side to satisfy the masses? You know, it's something that you've really got to question about our capitalistic system, and how it pushes these more intense flavors to the side. Because if Rockmelon development if Rockmelon development keeps going like this, and in 100 years from time, in 100 years in the future, you travel forward and you buy Rockmelon in the store and you eat it, and it's like eating way more saccharine confectionery than we even have today, and it just blows you away in how intense the flavor and the sweetness and everything is, and everybody's just walking around and they're eating it like it was normal. I mean, where does that leave us? Because we're so addicted to chasing those things that are going to release all those endorphins, and after a while it's going to dull down, and we'll need something sweeter and even better. it's it's the sugar chasing effect in fruit. Just not just in cuisine where you go out and like you get a hot fudge sundae and it's got ice cream and it's got maple syrup or fudge or just something really sweet on top. But not just in those areas where you know what you're getting. You're getting something that is just gonna be very rich and very sugary. But in fruit, in the basic building blocks of food itself, is that really the direction we want to be headed? Well, like I said, that's up to the people buying Rockmelon, really. So I'm just one man. I can't change the future of Rockmelon development. But I just encourage you to sort of think about that next time you go out and buy fruit, because it is worth thinking about. I think the way we've developed and pushed food into going into the future, and where it will lead. That aside, talking about Rockmelon, talking about anything orange, really. That's really what we want to talk about for a bit here, because orange. What does that mean? What does that mean for you? What does that mean for the fruit? That's an exciting that's an exciting topic. Okay, so if you watched maybe my carrot review, I think I brought this up. The orange color in fruits and vegetables, and you see it in carrots. You can see it in you can get like candy beetroot, just like gold or orange, and I can't really think of anything else off the top of my head. Oh, sweet potato. Obviously, your standard sweet potato is orange, and typically in fruits that are orange, the reason they're orange is because they contain beta carotene. And obviously, there's the sort of idea in people's heads that if you eat 400 kilos of carrots a day, you'll turn orange, which you will. I think there's pictures of flamingos. Most people know, or perhaps most people don't know. I don't know what most people know, but flamingos are pink because of the shrimp that they eat. So if they eat stuff with a lot of beta carotene in it, the flamingos will actually turn orange, and you can look that up. And that's sort of good for our skin. People can sort of tell. It's a sort of inbuilt thing in our brains where we look at somebody and we can tell from their complexion and the look their skin has, whether they're sick or whether they have a healthy diet or that sort of thing. So if we eat things with a lot of beta carotene in it, I'm not suggesting you go overboard and you eat so many carrots you turn orange, but the amount of carrots people sort of overblow these things. The amount of carrots you need to eat to actually turn orange is just preposterous for anybody. I eat carrots every day and I don't even like them, and I'm hardly orange. But the reason I sort of bring this up is the same thing sort of applies to Rockmelon. What gives it the orange color, that's just a fun little factoid. What gives it the orange color is the beta carotene, but the beta carotene itself is what gives you, well, in this particular instance anyway, will give you vitamin A. So the two main vitamins in your Rockmelon is vitamin A, which comes from the beta carotene. Maybe it makes your skin look a bit healthier, gives it a bit of a more glow. That's beautiful. Who could complain about that? And your vitamin C, of course, very important. Don't want to catch scurvy while out at sea. Apart from that, not really anything else important to mention. If we want to talk about Rockmelon, maybe in comparison to, I don't know, I was reading, I'm not actually sure if this is true, but here in Australia, most places anyway tend to be quite hot, and so the most popular melon is watermelon. But I was reading, and again, I don't know how factual this is, that cantaloupe is actually the most popular melon in America. And so if we want to sort of compare the two here, obviously when you get a watermelon, if you haven't gotten it before, and not to put spoilers on the review of watermelon, should I ever do one, but it's in the name. It's very watery. It doesn't have so much of a texture, whereas Rockmelon is quite, or can be quite hard. It'll soften up a bit as it gets riper, but not so much that you can just put your hand through it. If you're putting your hand through just any fruit or any vegetable, I mean, it's done. It's time to it's time to throw it in the bin, and you'll probably be able to smell it too. But so rockmelon is a bit meatier, a bit fleshier. It has a nicer, chunkier, not chunkier, but it has much more of a firmer texture to it than watermelon, which you can just scoop up, grab a handful of watermelon. That's probably the only fruit that you should really be doing that to. Well, you probably shouldn't be doing it. You make a terrible mess, but you can if you want, and it doesn't mean there's anything bad with the watermelon. Is what I meant to say. I think that just I think that just about covers it. I'm just dribbling on and rambling nonsense at this point, so I think I'm gonna sort of call it there. I mean, rockmelon. I realize I'm sort of giving all the fruits the sort of same rating here, but I just can't help it. That they're all so unique and so different, and they've all got lovely factors going for them that I don't see any alternative. Rockmelon. Oh, what can you say? Sure, it's got that musky flavor. Sure, people might find that unappealing, but you don't really get that from anything else. And isn't that something that makes it unique, that makes it wonderful, that makes you just want to go out and try it? Well, perhaps not if you don't really like the flavor, but we've got to appreciate its go-getter attitude in having a flavor that not many other fruits really have. And isn't that lovely? Wouldn't it be a tragedy if all fruits and all vegetables and all people were just the same? We were all just consuming Soylent. Well, I think so. So, rockmelon, I'm not even going to give it a number because it will just be around the same number. It'll be like a 7 or an 8 or something like that. So, rockmelon, I don't know. I don't want to give it a number. I just give it the old thumbie uppy. Go and get some if you haven't had some. Don't go and get it if you don't like it. But still, I still want to express that the musky texture, the taste that people dislike about rockmelon. Again, that's part of the melon. I'm sorry if you don't like it. That's just natural. But perhaps if you see something sweeter, or if you see like something sweeter like this, and there are also sweet melon that gets advertised. It looks very similar to an American cantaloupe or a rockmelon. And they're sort of advertised. They still have the same netted or webbed texture on the outside. And I haven't had those. I see sort of similar stuff when I go to the markets. I'll see normal pineapples and I'll see sugar pineapples or sweet pineapples sold as well. I've never had a sweet rockmelon, something that's been specifically advertised as that, apart from this yellow skin one. But perhaps if you really dislike a normal rockmelon, maybe give that a go. I'm trying to encourage people to go out and just eat more fruit generally. So anything I can do to do that. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared of the fruit. Go. Enjoy. I'll see you later. Don't know what I'm going to review next, but I'm sure it'll be soon.